who was my partner in founding the Sousa Mendes Foundation 5 years ago. I was casting about for a member of the Sousa Mendes family to be a partner with me in this adventure. And Sebastian understood the importance of having a foundation. And he held a meeting in his garden, and the foundation was born there. And so I'm so grateful to you. And this morning, Sebastian was elected as vice president of a foundation in Portugal called the Fundação Aristides de Sousa Mendes, which owns the house, the Casa de Passal. And so it's my hope that we will be close partners in that project to restore the house and give it the future that it deserves. Sebastian is a professor of art at Western Washington University. He has done a very important exhibition called There's a Mirror in My Heart, Reflections on a Righteous Grandfather. And that exhibition has been shown in New York at the Yeshiva University Museum. It's been shown in Bordeaux. It's been shown in a couple places in Australia. And it can be shown again if anyone wants to mount it anywhere. It's a phenomenal work. And it consists of drawings and sculptures. And it's just very significant. And it's all about names, right? Writing those names. Sebastian, please.
Well, first I must say I'm really moved by the depth of feeling this evening and the extraordinary eloquence which everyone has expressed those feelings.
Microphone, please.
Sorry?
Higher.
Louder? Louder? How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, tonight, of course, I would like to thank the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust, the C.D. Ziering Institute, and of course I have to thank Olivia. Yeah, it's incredible. Thank you. Consul Pedro Diaz. I appreciate what you said. Thank you. So I'm trying to hold it together here. So I guess I've wondered for a long time what kind of character my grandfather might have been to achieve the extraordinary rescue action that he had. I suppose, though, it's in this short moment, it's impossible really to answer that, but you can ask yourselves, and maybe if we linger tonight, we can share our thoughts on that. I have to say also, although I've read a fair amount of literature about my grandfather, that really what has been seared in my memory has been the oral history, which goes back to when I was 5. The first memory of my father telling that story. And I think also that I was very awe-stricken by the fact of his description of his father having produced visas for 30,000 people. And as a young boy, learning that he had worked perhaps 20 hours a day for several days straight, that it was really a superhuman achievement to have done that. And as an image, it stuck with me for a very long time, this fact that he, in the process of producing visas, he wrote a number in a ledger, a refugee's name, and then his own name on the visa, Aristides de Sousa Mendes. And that's something that I have never forgotten as an image in my mind. And although I'm 67 now, I've been making art since I was probably in high school or something. The idea of somehow trying to pay homage to my grandfather as an artist was very daunting, and I'm not a traditionalist. I'm not interested in making bronze sculptures or drawings or anything like that. So finally I came upon the idea of a series of drawings that literally took the number, the refugee's name, and Aristides de Sousa Mendes, and superimposed that 30,000 times over a period of about 2 years, and it surprisingly produces images of some intensity, I think. And I also saw it related to, after the fact, Hebrew micrography. Perhaps some of you might know about that. But anyway, I don't want to talk about myself. I want to say something about my grandfather and how he might have done these things. And so he was he had a classical schooling. He studied philosophy, history, Greek, Latin with his own brother. He had an identical twin brother whose name was the reverse of his, Aristides Caesar. His brother was Caesar Aristides. They wrote poetry, my father said, in Greek to each other. I think these things, especially philosophy and history, would have prepared him for becoming a critical thinker, which of course would be an essential ingredient. In 1995, I met the president with some of my family, the president of Queenborough University, which is the third oldest university in Europe. It's a great university. It's not so well known here. And that president, I'm sorry I forgot his name, but he said that my grandfather was one of the finest students the university had ever had, and he presented our family with a thick dossier of all of his academic records, which really astonished me, considering it was almost 100 years ago that he was a student. So his career started in Vigo, Spain, I think, and Zanzibar, Berkeley. He wound up after that where my father and my Uncle Carlos were born in Berkeley in the early 20s. Then he went to Brazil. And in Brazil there was a banquet where they were toasting I believe, the newly formed Portuguese government under Salazar, and they raised their glasses to Salazar. My father remained, after they sat down, he remained standing, my father told me, and he raised his glass and toasted the monarchy. Now, you might not be a monarchist, but at that time, in that situation, to have said that would have been enormously politically incorrect. So he had the courage and the sense of independent thinking to do that. Of course, having a successful career as a diplomat, and I think he did. I think he had a career of nearly 30 years at that time. By 1940, that meant unquestioning obedience in representing your country, even if you might not have personally agreed with it. You did that as a functionary, I suppose you could say. So, with the extreme crisis of thousands of refugees at the doorstep of his consulate, though literally many thousands, he decided to make an act of ethical disobedience. The idea of ethical disobedience is something that is extremely important to me. And in the case of the fact that we are now globally faced with I think you could say, a global refugee crisis. It might have centers, but it's in a lot of places. This idea of ethical disobedience is something that diplomats could be inspired by, I think. I'm sure some of them already are quietly doing things in the worst places. But the idea of advocating that there is a time to do that is so important. And my grandfather he had everything to lose and nothing to gain, but he did have the consolation of believing that he was acting right, correctly. Interestingly, he had an internal crisis, of course, an intellectual crisis, but he responded to it physically by the fact that virtually overnight the roots of his hair turned white. You might have heard that before, maybe not with him, but it happens. I asked my physician if that's even possible, and he said it is, and many people who, for example, in battles, Normandy invasion, many of those soldiers, the roots of their hair turned white, and then their hair turned white. And by the way, my father, though he was a Portuguese citizen, he joined the United States Army and participated in the invasion of Normandy. His hair got gray 30 years later. I think that's it. The only other thing I'd say is, oh, I know. I'm not very well organized here. Kind of quintessential literary example of when I read José Saramago. He's a fantastic, he's a Nobel laureate. Perhaps some of you have read him. Saramago in a novel, All the Names. He said, it is in times of extreme duress that the human spirit reveals the true nature of its greatness. That is my grandfather. Thank you.